Still in West Africa, Niger's military rulers have welcomed the announcement that France will pull its troops out of the country by the end of the year as a new step towards sovereignty. In a statement, the military leaders described the move as a historic moment, which speaks to the determination and will of the Nigerian people. The statement came hours after French President Emmanuel Macron announced that Paris would soon withdraw its ambassador from Niger, followed by its military contingent in the coming months. France's exit comes after weeks of pressure from the military and popular demonstrations. Thousands of people have protested in recent weeks in the capital Niamey, including outside a military base housing French soldiers. Now, to discuss this, we are now joined by Dr. Wole Ojewale, a security and conflict expert, for a fresh perspective on this development. Thank you so much for your time, Doctor. Well, let's get straight to it. With France's decision to withdraw its forces from Niger Republic, what potential security challenges and vulnerabilities may arise in the region, and how can Niger address them effectively?
Thank you so much for having me. I think the starting point is to underscore the fact that laying this to rest by France shows that possibly the conflict profile that has been building up over time, particularly since the juntas came into power, is probably going to be de-escalated now, because that has been the bone of contention, that the ambassador must vacate the territory. And then the second thing about the withdrawal of the troops, potentially, I think by the end of this year, we can view this at least in two perspectives. The number one thing is that the gap, the vacuum that is going to be created as a result of the withdrawal of French troops, there will be a need to fill that gap. I'm not sure if we gauge by recent attacks that have been on the rise, whether the Nigerian army, the entire military and security forces are actually up to that task. So if that vacuum is created, the first scenario is that we might likely see the rise, a spike in attacks by violent extremism group. And then the second scenario is that if the country, based on the recent charter, which they call the Goma Charter between Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, if the intention is actually to prosecute counter-insurgency operation and not necessarily in readiness for potential ECOWAS military invasion, perhaps that is going to fill the gap, and we might not, as expected and as I've analyzed, we might not see the rising or spike in attacks by violent extremism group. But by and large, I think the large expanse of land in the country which have remained ungovernable will remain vulnerable for the foreseeable days, unless the government is going to do something to fill the vacuum that is going to be created by withdrawal of France troops.
Now, talking about a vacuum, what impact could this withdrawal have on the broader security landscape and, of course, a counterinsurgency in the Sahel region, especially in terms of countering extremist groups and, of course, maintaining stability there?
Well, judging by the military capability of the country and its inability to prosecute effectively counter-insurgency operation in the recent time, because what we have seen in the region is that countries consistently rely on foreign mercenaries or foreign military and security support. So what that means is that adequate attention has not been paid into security sector reform in the country. So to the extent to which that is going to create the gap that we'll talk about, it might be very, very difficult to quickly close that gap within a short time period of 6 months that they have now. And the second thing that needs to be underscored is the fact that in all countries that are under military authoritarianism, the primary focus of the military establishment is regime protection. And if they focus on that, then what that implies is that they might continue to withdraw troops from frontline, from battlefront, to protect the regime. And if this is combined with the withdrawal of French troops, I think it might likely create a volatile environment. In Burkina Faso, in Mali, and in Niger in recent time, we have seen serious increase in attack by violent extremism groups. And then it's very difficult to imagine whether the situation is going to improve now, considering that withdrawal of the troop is actually going to be a major fracture in the security architecture of the country.
Now, are there concerns about the capacity of Niger's security forces to actually fill the void that will be left by French forces? And what support or partnerships could be crucial, particularly for Niger in this transition, especially now that it is in alliance with Burkina Faso and Mali?
Of course, the country has not really shown any serious commitment to counterinsurgency, particularly since the junta came into power. Judging by available data, we've seen spike in attacks in the recent time, which actually speaks to military incapability in terms of their readiness to prosecute counterinsurgency operation. So what do they have on the table now? They have just two options. One is to rather go the way of Burkina Faso and Mali and also embrace Wagner. That has its own serious implication for volatility of security operation in the country, particularly when we look at the experiences of human rights abuses and all kinds of things that have been levied against Wagner in Mali in particular, and even in Central African Republic, which is just a neighboring region. And then the second thing is that the Liptako Goma Security and Defense Charter, recently signed by the three countries to provide security and defense support to one another. If they are sincerely committed to that, probably that is going to bring about some form of respite in terms of multinational joint task force to actually combat insurgency in the region. But like I said earlier, if the primary objective is in readiness and in preparation for potential invasion or military intervention in Niger, I think then the Liptako Goma Charter of security and defense between the three countries is actually a dead on arrival, because the objective is probably different from what we are thinking. So we can assume that possibly they are not even putting it in place to come, for the purpose of counter-insurgency operation. So in the event that that is not the central objective, I think there's a likelihood that there might be a continuous spike in attacks, because the country has not demonstrated concerted effort in terms of security sector reform to be able to respond, particularly to violent extremism group, terrorists, and the bandits who are roving around, particularly in the tri-border areas of Burkina Faso, Niger, Mali.
Okay, I just wanted to, say this before I let you go. Just one more, a bit of a digression. Now that we understand that Mali has postponed its presidential election slightly, let's talk about the implications of this, not just on Mali, but also on Niger.
Well, I think the playbook in Mali is quite understandable. The military government always know that they are living on borrowed time, and they will put up all kinds of technical excuses to at least elongate their stay, even if it is going to be by days or months. But based on the agreement, the transition plan that the Mali government military administration have with ECOWAS, it terminates, I think, August next year, 2024. So there is no hide and seek about this, whether they like it or not. Based on the agreement, the transition plan between ECOWAS and Mali government, they need to vacate the seat of power by 2024. No, now by extending that to Niger, originally the juntas asked for 3 years, which I think negotiation is going on, and they are probably going to see how they can meet at midpoint of maybe 18 months maximum, or maybe 24 months. So I think the lesson of Mali now is that ECOWAS should also be prepared for such maneuvering, playing out in terms of the playbook that the Niger military junta is also going to probably be deploying in the coming days. But in countries that have come under military rule over the years, even in Nigeria, we saw how IBB didn't want to go, how Abacha didn't want to go. So I think it is the regular tactics of military government to see how they can extend their days, even if it is by weeks or by months. But in the final analysis, they will have to vacate the seats.
All right, thank you so much for your time. Wole Ojewale.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right.